Welcome to Drive the Daf. Clear, structured explanation of the daily Daf in 20 minutes. You can even follow in the car.
Eruvin Daf Dalid continues the lengthy Agadata talking about Talmid Chachamim and the Torah, the proper way to learn Torah in order to remember it, proper manner and the proper midos of a Talmid Chacham, the proper way in which Torah was taught in the Midbar, and a number of other bits of drashas on psukim and wisdom about learning. So at the end of the last daf, we had a statement from Beruria, the wife of Rabbi Meir. The Gemara begins then with another statement or anecdote with Beruria, which leads us into a discussion about the effect that the limbs of the body have on Torah and the effect that Torah has on the limbs of the body. So the Gemara says that Beruria once observed one of her husband's Talmidim learning very quietly, so she kicked him. And she said, "Don't you realize that the pasuk says Aruka Bakol Ushmura," which she said is a drush that means that if you have the Torah affect all 248 limbs of the body, that is when it'll stay by you. Otherwise, it won't stay by you. In order to do that, you have to speak loudly so that it has an effect on all parts of the body, not quietly like you're doing. The Gemara corroborates this by saying that Rabbi Eliezer had a Talmud who used to learn very quietly, and after 3 years he forgot everything that he learned. On the subject of that, the Gemara has another Talmud that Rabbi Eliezer had that was Chayev Misa. It was Chayev Sreifa. He had violated some Avera, but from Shemayim they decreed that he should be spared from it because he was a Talmud of Rabbi Eliezer, so he had shimush of somebody as great as that, so they spared him from that. Back to the subject of learning out loud, the Gemara says that Shmuel said to Rav Yehuda, "Sharp one, open your mouth and read Psukim, open your mouth and read Mishnayos loudly in order that it should be able to stay in your hand, because your Torah will stay with you that way. Also, it'll give you life. Like it says, it is life for those who take them out, which we say a drush to mean the moitzi ehem, those who take it out of their mouths, meaning they speak it loudly, and the end there is l'chol b'sar marpe, and it heals the entire body, so it gives you life and health." Shmuel also said to Rav Yehuda, "Sharp one, grab and eat, grab and drink, because this world is like a wedding hall, it'll soon be over quickly." Rav Hamnuna said to Rav said to Rav Hamnuna, if you can afford it, grab as many ta'anugim, as many pleasures as you can in this world, because nothing is going to hold back the death from coming quickly when it does come. And if you think you're going to leave it over for your kids so that they can enjoy it, who says that your kids are going to enjoy it properly? Maybe they'll just waste it. And second of all, HaKadosh Baruch Hu provides for each individual. He grows, his resources grow with his needs. We're like blades of grass in the field. Those who need more get more, and those who need less get less. So don't worry about your kids. Don't leave them inheritances. It says Yeshua ben Levi, somebody who is walking along the way and he doesn't have anybody to accompany him and guard him from mazikim, he should learn a Torah, like it says, ki livyas chein heim. It is livyas chein. It is a levaya, it is an accompaniment. Somebody who has a headache should learn Torah, like it also says, ki livyas chein heim leroishecha, for your head. We have a sore throat, you should also learn a Torah, like it says at the end of the pasuk, va'anakim legargiroisecha. It's jewels for your throat. Somebody who has a stomach ache should learn Torah, like it says, refuas tehilis sarecha. And somebody who has pain in his bones should learn Torah, like it says, v'shikolatz meisecha. It'll be a balm to your bones. As a matter of fact, even if he has pain in his entire body, general weakness, he should learn, like it says, l'chol b'sar marpe, the same pasuk quoted earlier. It is healing for the entire body. It says Rabbi Yehuda, Bar B'chia, look how wonderful HaKadosh Baruch Hu is. When people give you medication, so it's good for one part of your body, but it is damaging to a different part of your body. When HaKadosh Baruch Hu gives you something that's good for you, it's good for all of you at once. Gemara now brings a few more sources on the importance of speaking out your learning with your mouth. Gemara says, Rav Ami says on the pasuk Yinoim, ki sisrein bevidnecha, yikaniach al svasecha. It'll be sweet if you get to keep the Torah in your stomach. How do you do that? By yikaniach al svasecha, by speaking them out with your mouth. Rabbi Zera says, learn it out of here. Simcha leish b'mane piv. You get a great simcha when you're able to answer a question that they asked you. V'davar b'itei ma'toiv. Or, on the other hand, you get a great simcha if you learn something in the right time. And how do you have that? By manafiv. You have that by speaking it out with your mouth when you learn it. Rabbi Yitzchak says from here, it'll be close to you and good to you when you speak it out. in order to be able to do it. Rava says from here, how do you grant a person the desire of his heart, which is to know Torah, when it's when it's spoken with his mouth? Now, this pasuk itself, what it means is a contradiction, Rava says. In the first sentence, it says, Tavas libo in asatel, you give a person his desire when it's still in his heart, without him having to ask for it. On the other hand, the second half of the pasuk says, you don't withhold from him what he says. So which is it? Does he have to say it, or could he just desire it and you'll give it to him? So Rava says it depends. If he's a zoiche, if he has enough merit, then he gets it even when he just desires it, and otherwise, if he does not have that merit, then he has to speak it out first. Now, the Gemara has seen the word sela here. The Gemara wants to know, what does the word sela mean? The Gemara says the word sela, va'ed, and netzach all mean forever. It will not stop forever, it will continue everlastingly. So the Gemara says, how do you see that? Because they all are linked to the word la'ilam, like we see in the following psukim. Ki la'ilam le'arev la'ilam netzach ektzayf, that's netzach is la'ilam. Sela, like it says, Elokim yikainena ad oilam sela, and va'ed, like it says, Hashem yimlech la'ilam va'ed. Gemara adds now a number of other midos which a person should have in order to retain his learning and to be a Talmid Chacham. Learned from a number of these psukim. The Gemara says, you should be like jewelry around the neck. The Gemara says, just like neck jewelry is loose, not too tight fitting, and it is sometimes visible, sometimes not visible, sometimes it's hidden, sometimes it's exposed. So too, in order to be a Talmid Chacham, somebody should be easygoing, shouldn't be too firm around people, and he also should be sometimes visible and sometimes not, but he shouldn't be constantly running around in the street. He should be spending more time sitting at home and learning. That way he'll be able to learn. Next it says, L'chayev karugas haboisem, like a row of flowers. The Gemara says that the aruga is stepped on by everybody and it's used by everybody, so too a Talmid Chacham should not be sticking up for his rights too much. He should be allowing himself to be used, and just like the flowers make other people smell good, Talmid Chacham should be teaching Torah to others. That way his Torah will stay by him. Next it says, Luchos Even. What is the meaning of Luchos Even? That your L'chayayim, your jaws should be like Even, should be like stone, and shouldn't get weary of speaking the words of Torah. That way you'll be able to keep reviewing it out loud, and then your Torah will stay with you. Further it says, Charos ala Luchos. So the Gemara says, Charos ala Luchos means it was engraved in the Luchos. The Gemara says, if not for the fact that the first Luchos were broken, Klal Yisrael would have never forgotten their learning. Would have made such an impression on them that they would have never forgotten anything, and also the nations would never have had any dominion over Klal Yisrael, because Charos ala Luchos would be Chiros ala Luchos, freedom based on the first Luchos. Next thing that it says is Umi Midbar Matana. What does that mean? And the Gemara says Midbar Matana says that Talmid Chachamim should make themselves like a midbar, that they are open and stepped on by everybody. They should be humble, and if they do that, then they'll get their learning will stay by them as a matana, as a gift. The Gemara brings a story on the subject. The Gemara says that Rav Yosef was upset at Rava, and Rava decided in Yom Kippur to go as Mechila. So he went to Rav Yosef's house, and he saw that Rav Yosef's attendant was about to mix him a glass of wine, and he said, let me do it. Now Rav Yosef was blind, so he couldn't see that it was Rava, but when he sipped the wine, he said, this tastes like the way Rava mixes the wine. And Rava spoke up and he said, yeah, it's me. And Rav Yosef said, do me a favor, do not sit down, stay standing. Explain to me these psukim. What does this mean when it says, mi midbar matana, mi matana nachliel, mi nachliel bamos, mi bamos hagai? What does all this mean? So Rava explained, mi midbar matana means that if somebody makes himself like a midbar, somebody lets himself to be stepped on by everybody, so then he will get his learning as a gift as a matana. If he gets his learning as a gift, then he will be Nachliel, he will get a inheritance from HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Like it says, Mi Matana Nachliel. Nachliel Bamai, somebody who has a inheritance from HaKadosh Baruch Hu will end up being haughty, because his Bamai is like a high place. And somebody who's haughty will be Hagai, he will end up being lowered deep into the valley. So you should avoid that last step. And then if somebody who's low, so then it says Kol Gei Yinasei HaKadosh Baruch Hu will uplift him again. Somebody who is humbled will be uplifted again. Rav Huna says, what is the meaning of Chayas Chayashuva Tachin B'Tevas Chala'ani Elokim? Someone makes himself like a Chaya, and his Torah learning will stay by him. What does that mean? Like a Chaya? Chaya is a wild animal. A Chaya eats its food right after killing it, so a Talmid Chacham should review his learning right after learning it. And a Chaya destroys the food that he eats, makes into an Nevela, which smells, so somebody should be Menabel himself over the Torah. He should work himself so hard that he becomes wiped out like a Nevela. If he does that, then he will have success in his learning, and if not, then he will not. And if he will do that, HaKadosh Baruch Hu will make him a Suda on his own, like it says, Tachan b'tevascha la'ani Elokim. Okay, now the Gemara launches into the subject of reviewing your learning, and the Gemara brings a number of statements on that subject. So the Gemara says, what is the meaning of the pasuk Noitzer Te'enei Eichal Pirya, like guarding the fig tree, you'll eat its fruits? That's the Torah is like a fig tree. That's like a fig tree. Every time you check the tree, you'll find more ripe fruits. So to Torah, every time you learn the same sugi, you'll find more things that you didn't understand or more levels that you didn't get through to before. Similarly, the pasuk Ayalas Ahavim Vayalas Chein. What does this mean? Ayalas Ahavim, the beloved goat. The Gemara says that the Ayala has a very narrow womb, and therefore her husband loves her just as much each time as if it was the first time. That's how Talmid Chachamim are with their Torah. It is beloved to them as new each time they review it. Further, the pasuk says V'ya'alas chein, that it gives them a special chein, it gives them a special charisma. Then it says that their udders give you satiation at all times. Torah is like the dad that gives milk every time the child tries to get some, so too the Torah gives new understanding every time you relearn it. And Ravascha Tishke Tamid, through the great love that Talmid Chacham have through the Torah, they sometimes do foolish things, like Rabbi Elazar ben Padas, who was learning and he wandered into the lower marketplace of the city of Tzipori, but he left his coat in the upper marketplace of the city of Tzipori. One time somebody tried to steal it, and there was a snake under it that was guarding it to make sure nobody walks off with it. Next pasuk is the Gemara explains this one step at a time. These are Talmidei Chachamim who ride on the donkeys, traveling around from place to place in order to learn. Katzarayim, they make the Torah clear like the afternoon. Yeshvei al Medin, they sit and they judge the true judgment. Holche means going. That refers to the people who learn psukim, who go quickly and they make progress step after step. Al derech, on the road, there's people who learn mishnayos, who travel along the road to open things up and understand it. And tzichu, those are Talmidei Chachamim through and through, whose very speech, even if talking about mundane matters, is Torah in and of itself. Next pasuk is Lo Yacharoich Remiyah Tzeidoi. Rav Shesby explains, Lo Yichye V'Lo Yarach Yomim Atzayid Haramai. Somebody who tries to fool people and believe it, he's a Talmid Chacham. So he wants to learn a little in order to be able to show off his knowledge. It won't last very long because he won't remember much of what he learned. Another way of explaining that pasuk is Tzayid Haramai Yachroich. Rav Dimi explains that this is that if you learn, you have to make sure you understand it clearly and thoroughly before you move on to learn something else. Otherwise, you'll forget them both. And somebody who hunts birds, if he wants to keep them, he has to break the wings of the ones he catches before he tries catching another one. Otherwise, while he's catching another one, he will lose the first one. A similar note, Rava, in the name of Schleir, name of Huna, explains the pasuk Hoyin mehevel yimot v'klevitz al yad yarbe. So what does this mean? If somebody is Hoyin mehevel yimot, if somebody makes all his learning into heaps and he learns it all at once without reviewing in between, so he's not going to have too much. But if he learns one piece and then he goes over it and then he keeps that and then he moves on to the next one, then he's going to maintain his learning much better. So Gemara says that Rava continued and said that the Rabbanan were aware of this rule, but they ignored it. And Rav Nachman bar Yitzchak said, I followed this advice and my Torah therefore stayed with me much stronger and much clearer and much better. Now the Gemara brings the brayso which describes the order in which the Torah was taught from Hashem to Moshe Rabbeinu and to the rest of Klal Yisrael. So the brayso says that how did it work? Moshe Rabbeinu learned from HaKadosh Baruch Hu, and then he came down and Aaron came in and Moshe Rabbeinu taught it to Aaron. Then Aaron went and sat on Moshe Rabbeinu's left side, and then Aaron's children came in. So first Moshe taught it to Aaron with Aaron sitting in front of him. Then Aaron moved to Moshe's left side. Aaron's children, the ones that were left, came in. and Aaron was on the left side, and Moshe taught it to Aaron's children. And then they went and they sat. Elazar sat on Moshe's right, and Isamar sat on Aaron's left. The Gemara says actually Aaron got up and moved to Moshe's right at that point, in order that they should sit on the sides. And then the Zakanim came in, and Moshe taught it to them. And then the Zakanim went and they sat on the sides, and then the rest of Klal Yisrael came in, and Moshe taught it to them. Then afterwards Moshe left, and Aaron taught it to everybody. Then Aaron left, and Aaron's sons taught it to everybody, and then they left, and the Zakanim taught it to the rest of Klal Yisrael. This way it came out that everybody learned everything 4 times. So Gemara said, why did they do it this way? Why don't they just have Moshe teach it to everybody 4 times? So the Gemara says, first of all, 4 times is very important. You have to learn it 4 times, like we see from here, that if Moshe, who learned from Kadosh Baruch Hu himself, there was a need for a 4-time repetition. So you have a need for everybody, certainly anybody who's learning from any random guy, certainly has to review at least 4 times. So Rabbi Kiva says he should learn as many times as possible until he has it clear. Like it says, and it should be organized and clear. It's like it says, Tima Bafiyam, place it in their mouths, that it should be clear for them. And you should also explain it to him with all the details, like it says, you should give them all the rules straight out. So now the Gemara explains, Moshe didn't do all the teaching himself 4 times to everybody, because we wanted to give kavod to Aaron and to his children and to Zakanim, they should take part in the learning. Versus with that, we didn't just have Moshe teach Aaron 4 times and Aaron teach his sons 4 times and so on, because since Moshe learned it from Pia Gevura, from Hashem, we wanted Moshe to be involved in the teaching process to everybody else, and therefore they came up with this system. Gemara now refers to the machlokes between Rav Yehuda and the Tanna Kama as to where Aaron sat when his children came in. According to the Tanna Kama, he stayed on the left. According to Rav Yehuda, he got up and he moved to the right. So the Gemara says we have another brisa that says that when 3 people are walking together, so the Rav should be in the middle, the more chashav of the other 2 should be on the right, and the less chashav should be on the left. So the Gemara says it sounds like it fits with Rabbi Yehuda and not the Rabbanan, because it says that Aaron moved to the right. The Gemara says no, the Rabbanan would agree to that. The only reason that the Rabbanan said that they didn't have to move, that Aaron didn't move, was because it was not covered to be matriach Aaron to get up and move, even though it's more covered for him to be on the right side. So now the Gemara brings the famous story of Rav Preda. Rav Preda had a Talmud who needed to be taught everything 400 times in order for him to get it, and Rav Preda one day had to rush to Inyan Shal Mitzvah, and he told the Talmud, I need to leave soon for a mitzvah, but I'm going to teach you first. And he taught him 400 times, and the guy said, I don't get it. So Rav Preda said, what happened? He said, well, I knew you had to rush, so I couldn't focus. I was afraid you were always about to leave. So Rav Preda said, no, we're going to go over it again. And they went over it another 400 times. This time he focused and he got it. And a baskol came out of Shemaim and said, which schar would you prefer, 400 years of life, or guaranteed Olam Haba for you and your children? And he said, I'll take the Olam Haba. And the Kadosh Baruch Hu said, give him both. Okay, now the Gemara says that the best way to learn is to make simanim, to make mnemonics. And it's the only way to keep Torah with you. How do you know? Like the pasuk says, Sima b'fiyem, which we darshan, Simana b'fiyem, give them mnemonics. Rav Tachlifa from a Rava heard this and said over to Rabbi Avo. And Rabbi Avo said, you have a source for it for there. I have a different source. Atzivilach tziyunim. Similach tziyunim means simanim. Tziyunim means these mnemonics, again, like it says in the pasuk. V'ra etzem adam uvana etzlai tziyun. You see the bones and you make a mark. So that's showing that the word tziyun means signs or marks. And Elazar has a different source for it. Amar la chachma choisiat umaydel abina tikra. Give indication sources for your learning. That's maydayim. Rava says, "Asay adam la Torah." What that really means is that you should make set times to be able to learn and teach your talmidim. Alright, ends off. Rav Dimi Bar Chama Bar Daisa says the pasuk lei b'shamayim hi lei me'ver yam hi. It's not in heaven and it's not across the ocean. That means to tell you that if it would be in heaven, you would be obligated to go after it and get it, and if it would be across the ocean, you would have to go get it. But Baruch Hashem, it's not there. Rava and Rav Yochanan add 2 explanations to this pasuk. They're very similar explanations. Rava says, Lei b'shamayim, he means that you're not going to find it by somebody who thinks of himself as being up in the sky, somebody who's a balgaiva. And Lo Me'aver Liyam means you're not going to find it by somebody who thinks of himself as broadly and as chashuv as the sea. It says Lo B'Shmayim means you're not going to find it by somebody who's gas ruach, somebody who's inflated. And Lo Me'aver Liyam, you're not going to find it by somebody who is a merchant, who's busy in the marketplaces. As we said earlier, you're only going to find it, Torah that is, by somebody who is spending all his time learning and not busy running around taking care of other things.
Drive the Daf is a project of the Grand Woodlands Shul and is presented by Rabbi Yitzchak Landa. Find us on YouTube or subscribe to daily emails by emailing drivethedaf@gmail.com.